In our last video, we expressed interest in becoming a member of the Companions, a prestigious group of warriors committed to protecting the people of Skyrim. Despite his hesitation, one of the Companions, Farkas, agreed to test our fighting skills on the training grounds behind Jorviskr. After proving ourselves, we then set out to complete a number of errands for the Companions, including delivering a blade to the blacksmith Jorlind, delivering a shield to Aella, and then beating somebody into submission inside the Bannered Mare. We then returned to the Jorviskr living quarters. This is where our story continues. It's early morning. So early, in fact, that most of the others are still sleeping soundly in their beds. But as we start taking a little stroll around the living quarters, we quickly realize that we're not the only ones awake.
Skjor was looking for you earlier.
What does he want?
Don't know. He just said he needed to talk to you before you do anything else. I don't like making him angry, but there is some work for you if you want it.
This starts the quest, Proving Honor. We find Skjor fast asleep in his bedroom, looking, well, actually not very comfortable. Hey, Skjor, wake up!
There you are.
Farkas said you wanted to see me.
I did. Your time, it seems, has come.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you to be a little bit less cryptic for me here, Skjor. What do you mean by that?
Last week, a scholar came to us. He said he knew where we could find another fragment of Wuuthrad. He seemed a fool to me, but if he's right, the honor of the Companions demand that we seek it out.
No offense, but what exactly does this have to do with me?
This is a simple errand, but the time is right for it to be your trial. Carry yourself with honor, and you'll become a true companion. Farkas will be your shield sibling on this venture, whelp. He'll answer any questions you have. Try not to disappoint, or to get him killed.
The stakes are high on this one. If we can retrieve this Wuuthrad fragment, whatever that is, and then make it back to Whiterun alive, we'll be officially inducted into the Companions. To get started, we have to speak to Farkas, who we find out back behind Jorviskr.
I hope you've readied yourself.
So you're going to be my shield brother?
So I'm told. Let's see if you impress.
What is Wuuthrad exactly?
Ysgramor was the hero who started the Companions. Wuuthrad was his weapon. He came from the ancient homeland and killed all the elves. But not all of them, because some of them are still here.
Skjor said that this is my trial. Any idea what that means?
I want you to make sure you're honorable. If you are honorable and strong, then I can call you brother.
Alright, I'm in. I'll meet you at Dustman's Cairn.
Don't delay, shield brother.
With that, we can follow Farkas all the way through Whiterun and out the front gates. Pulling up the map, we see that Dustman's Cairn is located to the northwest of Whiterun. However, since I hadn't discovered Dustman's Cairn yet in my playthrough, I fast-traveled just east of the objective marker to Silent Moon's camp. After defending ourselves against a wolf, we can make our way west until we reach a stone path. Looks like somebody lost their cabbages there. Our compass indicates that Dustman's Cairn is close by, but that's not where this path leads us. Instead, we find ourselves at Hamvir's Rest, pitted against a small army of skeletons. After looting the skeletons, we can climb up a dirt slope and head south until we arrive at Dustman's Cairn. Heading down some winding steps, we brace ourselves for whatever dangers lie ahead and step inside. We start to have a look around, but quickly notice that something doesn't seem quite right.
Looks like someone's been digging here, and recently. Tread lightly.
You're right, Farkas. Somebody has definitely come through here already. But who? And what business do they have here in Dustman's Cairn? I suppose there's only one way to find out, and that's to continue onward. After heading east into a partially collapsed tunnel and then making our way down some stairs to the south, Farkas issues a dire warning.
Be careful around the burial stones. I don't want to haul you back to Jorviskr on my back.
Thanks, Farkas. You be careful, too. Just up ahead, we find more draugrs lying lifeless on the ground. But it looks like whoever came through here didn't finish them all off, leaving us to pick up the slack.
I'll have your head.
Boy, it sure is cramped down here. If we're not careful, these draugrs will be able to corner us with ease. It's no wonder Skjor wanted Farkas to come along with us as our shield brother. After looting the draugrs, we can follow a twisting and winding hallway until we come to a wooden door. Heading through the door and continuing north past a rather large spiderweb draped from a crumbling pillar, we find yet another dead draugr. The hallway continues to the east, but before we continue, we can loot a couple of iron ingots tucked away on a shelf. Just a few steps to the east is a rather unique-looking chamber, with a set of stairs leading down to a lower level and 2 platforms on either side. Standing on one of the platforms, we can see a faint beam of light flooding in from the ceiling. There's also 2 gates on the far side of the chamber, one that's open to the northeast, and another that's closed to the southeast. Heading down the stairs, we find an arcane enchanter against the northern wall close by to 2 thrones, one of which looks as though it's beginning to fall apart. There is a draugr lying on a table that we can loot, and a blacksmith's filter on the ground near a large storage shelf. Passing through the open gate to the northeast, we find a few potions on a table and a lever sitting on a ledge against the wall. Pulling it should open the other gate. Uh-oh. Or maybe trap us inside. Hey, Farkas? Little help here, buddy?
Now look what you've gotten yourself into. No worries, just sit tight. I'll find the release.
Suddenly, Farkas gets ambushed.
What was that?
It's time to die, dog. We knew you'd be coming here.
We try to pull the lever again, but nothing happens. All we can do is watch and hope for the best.
He wears that armor, he dies.
Killing you will make for an excellent story.
None of you will be alive to tell it.
What the? What's happening?
Never should have come here. You won't leave here alive.
Do our eyes deceive us? No, we know what we saw. Farkas is a werewolf.
I hope I didn't scare you.
Farkas, are you... I mean, what was that?
It's a blessing given to some of us. We can be like wild beasts. Fearsome.
And do you plan on turning me into a werewolf?
Oh no. Only the Circle have the beast blood. Prove your honor to be a companion. Eyes on the prey, not the horizon. We should keep moving. Still the draugr to worry about.
So it sounds like the Circle is an elite group that exists within the Companions, the members of which have beast blood coursing through their veins. Suddenly, the conversation between Vilkas and Cadillac that we walked in on in the last episode makes perfect sense.
But I still hear the call of the blood.
We all do. It is our burden to bear. But we can overcome.
We've been in the presence of werewolves this entire time. But what about the ambush we just witnessed? What did the attackers, who we learn belong to a group called the Silver Hand, want with Farkas? And what are they doing here in Dustman's Cairn? So many questions, and yet so few answers. After looting the Silver Hand corpses, we can pass through the southeastern gate that we opened when we pulled the lever. But just as we round the corner... Once the Silver Hand attackers are dead, we can backtrack and enter a small nook to the south, where we find a steel-horned helmet on top of a pedestal. But when we go to take it... sorry about that one, Farkas. You know you could have moved, though, right? I mean, you have legs for a reason. In any event, if we continue east and then turn north, we quickly find ourselves in another chamber. There's an open tomb against the western wall, which means we're probably going to run into more Silver Hand fighters up ahead. Sure enough, as we pass through a door to the north and then a second door to the east, another battle commences.
What was that?
Time to end this little game. Victory is yours. I submit.
Get back here, you coward! With Farkas growing tired, it's up to us to fend off the remaining attackers on our own.
Son of a...
As Farkas catches his breath, we can retrace our steps to make sure we didn't miss anything. However, other than the loot we find on the Silverhand corpses, there is sadly nothing of interest. Turning around and heading back into the room where we just finished off that last Silverhand fighter, we can pick a novice-locked chest underneath some stairs. Inside we find some gold and a potion of plentiful magicka. Heading up the stairs, we find a room along the eastern wall that is nearly completely filled with rubble and debris. At first glance, it appears that nothing is in here, but a closer look reveals that, in fact, there is. Partially buried beneath the rubble is a master-locked chest with some decent loot inside, including a necklace of stamina, which increases the player's stamina by 30 points. We can also pick up a coin purse hidden behind one of the doors on our way out. To continue forward, we have to head south into another large room. There's a catwalk stretching from one wall to another, at the end of which is a burial urn with some gold and another potion. Down the stairs and to the right is a table with even more loot, including a few potions, several pieces of gold, and some low-level weaponry. Passing through a wooden door to the south, we can loot some more burial urns before coming face to face with another Silverhand member.
No more! I yield!
Gosh, how many of these guys are actually down here with us? After picking an adept-locked chest for some gold, we can head south down some stairs and through another set of wooden doors. Up ahead, we find a chamber that looks as though it's seen better days, with a giant moss-covered platform that likely collapsed decades ago. Suddenly, more Silverhand members appear from beyond the piles of stone and dirt. Farkas rushes out of the room to the south. We go to follow him, but accidentally set off a trap in the process, sending poison arrows flying in all directions. It deals some damage, but the battle continues.
That's all you've got? Force roll!
Do your worst!
Farkas is hurt again, and that got me thinking. Why doesn't he just transform into a werewolf again and rip through the Silverhand just like he did before? It would sure make things easier for the both of us, but then again, maybe there's a good reason for it. Maybe once he turns into a werewolf, Farkas has trouble controlling himself. Maybe he's worried that he would turn on us to satisfy his beast-like thirst for blood. If you have your own theory on why Farkas doesn't turn into a werewolf again in Dustman's Cairn, go ahead and tell me about it in the comments below. On one of the Silverhand corpses, we find a journal titled Physicalities of Werewolves. Far too many books such as this one begin with some sort of justification. Some reason for study is concocted in the hopes that the writer's obsession will be seen in a more noble light. I make no such pretensions. No werewolf killed my family, none ever threatened me personally, nor even an acquaintance of mine. My obsession is born out of a simple curiosity, with a strong dose of hatred for the unnatural. Is it possible to hate something without having been done harm by it? I am no philosopher, and thus here ends my introduction. On with my studies. I have endeavored, over the course of several decades, to perform a complete study on the physical nature of the creatures we call werewolves. I overlook entirely the origins of this plague, whether it is acquired voluntarily or inflicted, and how one might be cured. Such matters are filled with too much guesswork and rambling secondhand inanities from farmhands. Subject A. Captured in Morrowind while in beast form. Makeup. Male, Breton in his true form. Notes. Subject shows an unusually high degree of control over his transformations. Experiment 1. Subject's bodily proportions were thoroughly measured before, during, and after the transformation. As expected, the proportions were identical while in true form, but some minor swelling of the head was observed immediately after the return. Changes observed during transformation: 23% increase in shoulder width, 17% narrowing of the hips, 47% lengthening of arms, 7% increase in finger length, not accounting for claws. As for the legs, the lengthening of the foot to several times its normal length seems to account for the otherwise negligible changes in the thigh region. Experiment 2. Subject was coerced into changing as rapidly and as frequently as possible, at various times and at various levels of duress. Transformation times and effects were not viewed to change notably. Subject expired. Concluding tests. My gosh, these people are evil. Subject B. Captured in Cyrodiil, already imprisoned by local authorities in true form. Makeup: female, Nord in her true form. Notes: subject's large size in both true and transformed forms makes an excellent fit for vivisection. I believe I may have been the first to witness a werewolf transformation ply its effects on the internal workings of a creature. The heart is the first thing to swell, long before the lungs or bones shift to accommodate it. This may account for the intense chest pains that some of the afflicted report directly before their changes. More interesting were the changes observed in the muscles of the legs. I had expected a strengthening, as the beasts are known for great power and speed, but they also seemed to change color into a dusky brown. This could also be attributed to the blood loss from the procedures. Before the subject expired, I worked applying some known remedies for the disease directly to internal organs. Wolfsbane petals applied to the bones seemed to render them brittle, and the rib cage nearly collapsed at the touch. The juice of ripened belladonna berries was pressed directly into the veins, and they could be seen to shrivel behind the flow as it moved through the system. Upon reaching the heart, the major vessels pulled away completely, and the subject expired within minutes. Now we see what's really going on here, and it's even more diabolical than we ever could have imagined. The Silver Hand is a radical organization dedicated to the extermination of werewolves. Worse still, there appears to be no rhyme or reason behind their hatred. They simply despise werewolves because they are unnatural. They think nothing of performing horrific and gruesome experiments on these poor creatures, and that's likely why they're here in Dustman's Cairn. They knew Farkas would come for the Wuuthrad fragment and hoped to either kill him or worse. These are bad, bad people we're dealing with. After reading the journal, we can travel west and enter into Dustman's crypt. Here we find more members of the Silver Hand waiting for us. I hope they're not expecting mercy, because they're not going to find it here. Walking onto a caged catwalk, we see that there are several more Silver Hand fighters below us. To get down and confront them, we have to travel west down a hallway and then turn left. It is here that a massive battle ensues between the Silver Hand and the companions.
Lucky hit! Die, damn you! Blast him! Yours! I submit! I cannot best you!
Watch it there, brother!
After looting the Silver Hand corpses, we can begin making our way east down a long hallway. Inside of a nook on the right-hand side is an unlocked chest with some loot inside, and inside another nook on the left, buried beneath some rubble, is an urn with some gold and a potion. At the end of the long hallway is a short, winding tunnel that leads into a chamber. Downstairs on a lower level are a few burial urns on top of a table that we can loot, and a draugr with some gold still on its body. Stepping through a door to the north, we find ourselves in the room we previously looked down upon as we walked across the caged catwalk. Along the western wall is an unlocked chest which contains the Dustman's Cairn key. Conveniently, we can use this key to unlock two large wooden doors to the north. Here, we get rushed by a Skjor.
I'm getting out of here.
And another. And a third skeever. Alright, now this is getting a bit excessive. If we head into the room where the skeevers rushed out of, we find an alchemy lab next to another open door to the east. After killing a fifth skeever, we can enter what looks to be some kind of secret passageway to the east, just wide enough for us to navigate through. Following it leads to, a giant frost spider. It looks as though this part of Dustman's Cairn is man-made, but it's likely been abandoned for years, thus giving the giant frost spider a new place to call home. But after crossing a couple of small bridges, we realize that the frostbite spider wasn't the only inhabitant of this part of the tomb. Suddenly, Farkas races over to another Draugr in a tunnel to the west.
Close.
Once we finally get a chance to catch our breath, we can travel west down the tunnel and then head north through a set of iron doors and into what looks to be the final chamber. On the opposite end of the room is an end-of-dungeon word wall where we learn the dragon shout, Fire Breath. I didn't end up using this new ability in this particular playthrough, but just for your information, the Fire Breath shout allows players to unleash a powerful blast of fire, which inflicts either 50, 70, or 90 fire damage, depending on its intensity. This will come in handy in the future, especially when we find ourselves pitted against multiple enemies at once. After absorbing the dragon shout, we can loot some soul gems and a couple of potions on top of some kind of ceremonial altar. It is here that we find the fragment of Wuuthrad. But shortly after taking it, an entire army of Draugrs awake from their slumber and attack. This was admittedly the most difficult battle of the entire quest. Not because the Draugrs were difficult to kill necessarily, but because of their sheer numbers. I knocked down wave after wave of the undead, but each and every time, more would appear to take their place.
Easily blocked.
At last, the battle is over. Several, maybe even dozens of dead Draugrs are littered across the floor. After taking a quick victory lap over their bodies, we can climb some steps on the southern side of the chamber and enter a tunnel that leads back up to Dustman's Cairn. The tunnel continues upwards until we reach a lever on the wall. Pulling it opens a stone door, which takes us right back out into the room we first found ourselves in upon entering Dustman's Cairn. The exit to Skyrim is just up some stairs to the east, but before we leave, we can pick a novice-locked chest that we somehow missed earlier. I'm not exactly sure how this went unnoticed, but better late than never, as they say. When we're ready, we can leave Dustman's Cairn and then fast travel back to Whiterun, where we find the companions waiting for us behind Jorviskr.
Brothers and sisters of the Circle, today we welcome a new soul into our mortal fold. This man has endured, has challenged, and has shown his valor. Who will speak for him?
I stand witness to the courage of the soul before us.
Would you raise your shield in his defense?
I would stand at his back, that the world might never overtake us.
And would you raise your sword in his honor?
It stands ready to meet the blood of his foes.
And would you raise a mug in his name?
I would lead the Song of Triumph as our mead hall reveled in his stories.
Then the judgment of this circle is complete. His heart beats with fury and courage that have united the companions since the days of the distant green summers. Let it beat with ours, that the mountains may echo and our enemies may tremble at the call.
It shall be so.
Well, boy, you're one of us now. I trust you won't disappoint.
And with that, we complete the quest Proving Honor and are officially inducted into the Companions. But, Cadillac, is it true? Are the Companions werewolves?
I see you've been allowed to know some secrets before your appointed time. No matter. Yes, it's true. Not every companion, though. Only members of the Circle all share the blood of the beast. Some take to it more than others.
And what about you?
Well, I grow old. My mind turns towards the horizon, to Sovngarde. I worry that Skjor won't call an animal to glory as he would a true Nord warrior. Living as beasts draws our souls closer to the Daedric Lord Hircine. Some may prefer an eternity in his hunting grounds, but I crave the fellowship of Sovngarde.
So unlike the other members of the Circle who embrace their abilities, Cadillac rejects it. He fears that living as a beast will prevent him from getting into Sovngarde, something that he wants so desperately when his time comes. Are you looking to cure yourself, Cadillac?
Yes, but it's no easy matter. But you don't need to share the worries of an old warrior. This day is to rejoice in your bravery. And speak to Yorland if you want a better weapon than whatever that is.
Hey, don't be hating on my Dragonbone sword. But thank you, Cadillac. I'll keep that in mind. We learned a lot about the Companions in today's episode, but there are still more questions that need to be answered. What will end up happening if this war between the Companions and the Silver Hand continues to escalate? Will the Companions ever find all of the fragments of Wuuthrad? And will Cadillac be able to find a cure so that he no longer has to live as a werewolf? We'll answer all of these questions and more in the coming episodes. So far, I really like the direction the Companions' questline is going in. The Silver Hand is the perfect enemy, disturbed, ruthless, and motivated by an unjustifiable hatred for people they deem unnatural. Learning the truth about the Silver Hand made me feel invested in the ongoing conflict between them and the Companions. Every swing of my character's sword suddenly had meaning behind it. And in my opinion, this kind of immersive experience is what separates the good games from the great ones. But what about you? What do you think about the Companions' questline so far? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. I post new videos on Skyrim every single Thursday and Friday, folks, so be sure to subscribe to my channel to stay up to date on all of my latest content. If you're an entertainment junkie like I am, then you might like my brand new podcast, Past the Veal, where we discuss everything from upcoming video games to movies and television shows. I post video versions of the podcast right here on my YouTube channel every Sunday night at 7:00 p.m. Eastern Time, so be sure to check that out as well. But that's all for now, folks. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time with Part 3.